Well, hello, I am Karen Raymond. I'm one of the business advisors here at Collin SBDC, which is Small Business Development Center. I just want to thank you for joining us for the Right Person, Right Time with Lauren Kibbe. We're really excited about our CARES program, which brings national experts to provide Collin and Rockwell County area companies and residents with customized training and consulting at no cost. The program is designed to advance your understanding of 2021 business trends, learn to diagnose new challenges in your business, identify hacks that make the best use of your time and money, and increase your probability of substantial growth. Get that one out. So anyway, since you already signed up, you know the process as far as going to our website to sign up for webinars. Please feel free to join in to the other webinars that we're having. They're going to be through the month of January and part of February. So feel free to go back, encourage your friends. Like I said, the webinars are all at no cost. In addition, we want you to take the time to complete our CARES application to receive some future assistance. Again, custom consulting and training. Little housekeeping, everyone is muted. Therefore, if you do have questions or any excitement that you want to share with us, please utilize the chat. Lorna will be answering all the questions at the end of her presentation. She will have some polls, and we really encourage everybody to participate in them as well. So we will upload the presentation after we are recording it now, and we will upload it to our YouTube channel for further review or sharing. So let me introduce our speaker. Lauren Kibbe is a content speaker and author who focuses on helping leaders develop their most important and most complex resources, people. Through her company, Lorna Kibbe Leadership Solutions, Lorna designs and delivers leadership seminars and motivational keynotes to a variety of audiences. She is certified to conduct workplace assessments, workshops for teams, and workshops for all levels of employees using Everything DISC. Her years of experience in the public sector combined with years of practice in all types of organizations have made her the leadership expert she is today. In fact, she wrote a book on becoming a better boss. Her book, Becoming a Better Boss, Your Guidebook to 25 Fundamental Management Responsibility, was published in 2019. I think we have a big treat ahead of us. So right now I want to go ahead and let Lorna take the stage. Thank you, Lorna.
Thank you, Karen. And thank you for just saying to everybody, let's keep it kind of casual. I would love to see some chat going. And I appreciate that. And I'll try to keep an eye on it. And Karen, if you see anything in chat as we go that you think, oh, we need to stop and talk about that right now, let's do it, because
Okay.
I'd like for this to be interactive. You know, it's like, for me, sometimes it's hard to sit and watch a webinar. You know, I want to say something. I want to be part of it. So I encourage you, you know, if you feel like you need to say something, let's hear it, put it in chat. Let's talk about it. I'm going to share my screen with you. And first, you know, just as Karen said, we'll just reiterate that, as you know, we have the CARES program here in full swing, and what an amazing opportunity for us, that everything that's going on here, it's awesome. So I think the thing that I really appreciate about this, Karen, that, you know, I'll just say, you know, as someone from the outside looking in and also benefiting from this, is the fact that if I need more information, if I need to take a deeper dive, you guys have a process so I can apply to get some consulting and get some more information on anything I need, right? I mean, I can fill out this application and ask you to go further with me to help me in a deeper way. Yeah.
Right.
That's amazing. That's great. So let's not forget the amazing resource we have here as we talk today about right person, right time. And the reason I wanted to point out how important that is because this is a lot to cover in a webinar. This is a lot. There's so much information to share with you. I can't possibly share everything. So there's probably going to be some things where you're thinking, I wish I did have more information, or I wish we could go into that deeper. And the application process that SBDC Colin has for you is a way to find out more where you need to go deeper. Of course, I'll point you to some resources too to help. But my goal here is today to avoid this. An absolute train wreck. I think I can give you enough information to help you so that you don't have that absolute train wreck. And that's what we'll aim for. Karen, everything okay?
Yes, all's good.
Okay. So here we go. When we talk about hiring, when we talk about bringing someone to our team, it's a process. And there's a whole lot that goes into successful hiring. And this is the process: planning, recruiting, screening, interviewing, selecting, and then onboarding. And I'll be talking about these. I won't talk about everything that has to do with all of these because we would be here for days, which could be fun, but I doubt anybody wants to stay for days. So I'm going to try to hit some real highlights for you. Like I said, it'll keep it from being a train wreck, and also like the most helpful tips that I can give you for diving in and doing a successful hire, because I know it's not easy. There's a lot that goes into it. So I want to do the best I can to help you today. This is going to be our first poll, Karen, because what I'd like to see before I go on is just what you think is the greatest challenge for you. So if you could pop up our first poll, Karen, right here. Hold on, everybody. Our poll is coming. There it is. So in the hiring process, which of these steps presents the greatest challenge for you? This will help me out to see where you think the problem it really is for you. So just do your best right now. If everyone would just pop an answer in here for me, I'd appreciate it. In the hiring process, which of these steps presents the greatest challenge for you? And we've launched the poll. So we should be getting some answers. I can't see those compiling, Karen. I think you can. People are responding.
Yes, I see the polls are, the blue line is moving, so that means we're all good.
I can't wait to see the results. We'll just give it another couple of seconds here to see where people are having the greatest challenge. I can't wait to see what the answer is, because all of these have the potential to be a great challenge for me. I've had great challenges in every one of these steps, but anxious to see what y'all think.
Okay, it looks like everybody's voted, so I'm
Fantastic. Let's see the results. I can't wait. Drum roll.
Drum roll.
Uh-oh, it's gone. Where is it? There it is. Oh, how interesting. Okay. Yep, this is very interesting. So you all said planning was no challenge. And oh my gosh, I think that's one of the hardest areas. And I'm going to talk about why I think it's a hard area. So that's interesting. I'm going to be interested to find out whether it's not a challenge for you because you totally know what to do, or because maybe you didn't think about what you needed to do. Recruiting and interviewing tied. How about that? Recruiting. We're going to talk about recruiting. I have some ideas for you on that, some new things that you can do. One person said screening. Oh, screening is hard for me. I think it's because it's like, it's like all that detail stuff you have to go through to figure out, what you should do next. So I get you, the person who said screening. And interviewing, we'll talk about interviewing. I'm going to focus on how to question and how to find out about the knowledge, skills, and abilities you need through questioning. That's what I'm going to focus on. Selecting, no big challenge there. Okay, good. And onboarding, one person again. I think that's an area where most of us could do better. So I am going to talk a little bit about onboarding today. So, okay, Karen, thank you very much. That's great. That's great. I appreciate it. Let's dive right in. Let's talk about planning. Let's start there. The reason I say this is important, and you all didn't, interesting, is because I think sometimes in recruiting and in hiring, we don't spend enough time upfront making sure that we know what we're hiring for and that what we're doing. Sometimes when we have a vacancy and somebody has left, taking time to look at the existing documentation we have for the position, the job description, and so on is really important. We need to be really assessing the job that we're getting ready to fill, talking about it, what's needed to be successful in that job so that we can recruit in the right way and hire in the right way. Otherwise, we may be hiring in a way that doesn't lead to success because we didn't take the time up front to make sure we knew what we were doing. And it starts with this. Just what are you looking for? You know, what I call this is developing a persona. Developing a persona about the person that you want to hire. What do you need? What are you looking for? Do you need a team player? Do you need somebody who is willing to drop everything on a weekend and come to your rescue when a customer needs help? Do you need somebody who's needs a driver's license because they have to drive a car? Do you need somebody who's very detail oriented? And I recommend like getting your peers involved in this discussion. Like, what do we need on our team right now to give us the greatest success? I don't think we spend enough time up front thinking about what are we really looking for here, and not just trying to fill that job with someone who we think has the right skills. We need to develop a persona, go into it a little bit deeper, you know? Are there any keywords we should be looking for on the resume? Any key skills? All of this needs to happen before we take the next step in planning, which is the job description. And I know we all have job descriptions, but be honest, when's the last time you looked at that job description? Because the world has changed, in case you didn't notice. Things have changed, you know, whereas before you may not have had anything on there about working virtually or the ability to work remote. Now it may be completely necessary. Maybe technology has changed for the job. Who knows what's changed? Have you really looked at that job description to make sure that it specifies what you need? You see, all that work that you did in setting up your persona lays the groundwork for you on that job description. For example, if you say, I have to have somebody who's going to do deliveries, they have to be able to drive. Your job description is where it's going to say you have to have a driver's license. You know, your job description lays out those basic qualifications so that when you get ready to interview, when you get ready to select, you can bring on the best person and eliminate people who don't have the qualifications that you need. So that planning piece you said wasn't a great challenge for you, but I want to make sure that you're giving it enough attention when you start, really looking at that description, making sure that it's up to date, and also make it appealing to people. You know, make the job sound appealing, and then see what you can do to kind of jazz it up a little bit in the description so that it's very specific. Listen to this. I found this online. Indeed, you probably heard of Indeed. They have all kinds of great research that they do and stuff for job recruiting. A 2018 survey that they did said that, get this, 63% of candidates said they chose not to apply for a job because they felt like they didn't know the specific skills and tools listed in the job description. They didn't know what they needed because the job description was so vague. They didn't know if they qualified and they didn't apply. Isn't that kind of scary to think that maybe 63% of the people that are looking at one of your jobs dismisses it because of the job description? That's scary. So we really have to take a look at that job description and make sure we're doing our planning up front. Here's the other thing. You know that in the end, you're going to have some kind of a scoring matrix. You're going to have some kind of a tool to help you kind of assess the skills of the different candidates. This is where that matrix comes from. The keywords in your job description, the knowledge, skills, and abilities that you list in your job description. And the other thing the job description does for you, it gives you an opportunity to use what we're calling in today's HR world, desired competencies. You know, those other little things that you really need, like a great attitude, enthusiasm, personality. So you can work those into the KSAs in the job description if you do all that planning up front. So the job description, figuring out what you need up front, that planning phase, really, really important. And I'm not sure we always put enough emphasis on it. With that, how about a little feedback in the chat? Is it possible that nobody said planning was a challenge for them because they're doing it all right? Do you think you're doing it all right? You know what? I have a poll for this actually, Karen. Let's put the poll up and let's see what we got. Poll number 2, our job descriptions are up to date, specific, concise, and attention grabbing. That's what I want to know. Let Karen put that poll up. Here we go. We'll find out what you're thinking. Do you agree 100%? Your job description is up to date, specific, concise, attention grabbing? Or would you say they need help? Or would you say, I don't know, I'm not sure. I'm making you commit too. If you say you're not sure, you have to promise to look at them before you start to fill your next job. So let's see what you think here. Let me see why. Maybe you're up to date. Maybe you're on top of this. That'd be cool. Let me know how it's looking there, Karen, when you're ready, when you feel like they voted. How's it looking, Karen? They got it?
Yep, just in time. We have all the individuals have
Okay.
voted, so we're at 100%. So
Can't wait. This is so exciting. Let's see what they did.
polling, and we're going to share the results.
It's so exciting, isn't it? Oh, ho, ho, ho. Isn't this telling? Okay, so a couple of you are really on top of this. Congratulations. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that because it's not easy to do that. It's like, you know, when you have a vacancy, it's not what you want to do is start there. You just want to get in there and get somebody hired, you know, but doing the work up front really pays off. So those of you that need help, you know, there's more that you can learn about this. And really sometimes it's just taking time. Like I said, I recommend get your employees involved. You know, the person who's leaving, if you can, have a discussion with them about the job description. In the best of all worlds, every year we would be reviewing those job descriptions by having the person in the job look at the description and update it. Say, this doesn't apply, or I'm doing this and it's not in there, you know, and have them help you to keep those job descriptions up to date. And a couple of people confess they're not sure, and they'll check before they move forward. Thank you. You've committed now. You need to do that. So yeah, I hope you can see how I think this planning part's kind of setting everything for you as far as future success in your hire, because so many things depend on it. Getting the right person, getting the right skill set that you need, and having the evaluation tool that you need to make sure you are getting the right person. Plus, it's a big legal bonus for you, because legally you can say you have to be able to lift more than 50 pounds to do this job. And as long as that's in the job description, you're covered. You have to have a driver's license. If it's in the job description, you're covered. You have to be able to speak 2 languages. If it's in the job description, you're covered. So this is where you put everything. This is where you cover yourself. You got to start there. Okay, let's close this. Let's go to what happens next. But wait, there's more. Recruiting. Yeah. Now, a few of you said recruiting was a challenge. And I think in today's market, it really is a challenge. I hear this a lot, that people are really struggling with recruiting. So I have some ideas for you about recruiting, and I'll talk to you about those. Just to show you, I mean, the first thing that we talked about here is you got to have that concise, specific job description. You've got to create your persona, include your peers and putting that together. You have those 2 things, now you're ready to start finding the right person. So there are several things you can do. One of the things in research that I've found to be most successful, and I'll talk to you about, is an employee referral program. I don't know if many of you have an employee referral program, but what we're finding is that probably the best employees we have are people that somebody already knew. You know, somebody in the company already knew them. Some companies make a really big deal out of their referral program, like Google. You get major incentives if you bring somebody on board. There's a company in California called IDEO. They require applicants to get to know the people in the company well enough so at least 10 of them will recommend them as an employee. And they have a lot to choose from. Can you imagine trying to convince 10 people to recommend you to be hired? But employee referral means, and the thing about this is you really have to let your employees know that you're serious about it. You don't just put it in your handbook and forget it. You know, you have to be talking about it. chances are they know someone who would be a great fit for your organization. They're a hero because they help the person get a job, and because in many organizations they get some kind of incentive. Sometimes it's just kudos, sometimes it's financial incentive. But think about it, your employees are probably a great source of finding people that would be a great fit for your company. So that's a really big one. Of course, compelling ads. Think about the advertisement that you write for your job. I mean, it has to reflect your culture. It has to really describe, what kind of atmosphere they're going to be working in, what qualifications are essential. It needs to talk about what would be nice. If we had this would be nice. It needs to talk about the industry, the location. There's a lot that needs to be included in that ad, and it has to be something that really interests me so that I'll look at it. So it has to be compelling. There's some great information out there about writing ads. I'll be straight with you. One of the books that I really like, and I'm using it to supplement some of the material for this, is called HR Hacks. It's by Lori Kleeman, Kleiman. It's available on Amazon. That book and some others like it have a lot of templates. So her book actually has like a template for writing a compelling ad. So get some more help with that if you need, but make sure that your ads are compelling. Social media. Of course, you know about social media. LinkedIn is amazing. I don't know if you've played with that at all, but one day I was playing with LinkedIn and I checked this little box that said, okay, let me know if there's any jobs that look like it would be a good match for me. I'm not looking for a job, but I get matches and they come through. I get little alerts. And now I'm going, maybe I should look for a job. There's some really great stuff out there. So because somebody went on LinkedIn and wrote up, hey, I'm hiring and this is what I'm looking for. And I get an alert. So, are you using LinkedIn? Are you using social media to do that kind of thing? I mean, when you think about it, back to how do you recruit? Go to the people you know. Go to your network. So LinkedIn is a great source for that. Facebook, Instagram to a lesser degree, but still something to think about. And I don't know if you know about Indeed. It's king. There's others, Monster. There's other sites out there. Indeed is amazing. I mentioned it already. If you haven't looked at this, go look at Indeed.com. The things that it can do are mind-blowing. It goes out there, it checks resumes for a good fit with what you need. And then it notifies both parties, hey, I found a good fit. It sets up a resume alert. You get an alert saying, hey, this resume just came on the system. This looks like exactly what you need. Can you imagine? So Indeed is considered king out there in the world. So if you're not advertising your jobs on Indeed, if you're not using that, that might be something really good to look at because people are having pretty great success with that. And I have on here, provide a candidate experience. And what I mean by that is if you do interview someone or if you bring them into interview, really do your best to be honest with them about the culture and the organization that they're coming into. I mean, you want to make the interview a good, pleasant experience for them. You also aren't really looking to, hide your dirty laundry because remember that it's a match on both sides. It's a match for you and it's a match for them. So you don't want somebody to come in and think that it's this way when really it's that way. And 2 weeks later, you have a vacancy again, right? So, go ahead and show them your office, show them what it's like to be in this environment. Let them know, what they have to do to survive here, what they have to do to do well here. I mean, be upfront and honest with them. And just don't, know that they're observing when they come to your workplace. And eventually, even if you do virtual interviews, people are going to come to your workplace, hopefully get a little tour, meet some people. They're impressed by the smallest things. So, think about what's going on and what it might be saying about your culture. I talked to this lady. I was trying to kind of help her because she was really looking for a job, and she's a millennial, and she had a great interview, and she was like sold. She loved it. She thought the culture was a great match for her. Everything was good. She really loved it. She went in for a tour and a final interview, And during the tour, they took her to the break room. They said, this is where employees come, they're welcome to come here and just take a break. The refrigerator's fully stocked. You can get whatever you need whenever you need it. They opened up the door and the refrigerator, this is a true story, the refrigerator was like full of Red Bull, that energy drink. She's like, that's a lot of Red Bull. And I said, well, it's important that our employees are always enthusiastic and energetic, and we're going to give them whatever they need to be that way all the time. And she's like, whoa, this is intense. In the end, she didn't take the job that was offered because of that one thing. And I don't know that that's bad. I mean, maybe that was something about their culture that wasn't coming through. And I don't know. All I'm saying is you really have to be aware that when you're doing interviews, they're getting an impression of you as well. And it needs to be a good match on both sides. Sometimes we're going to be doing video interviews, and we're going to talk a little bit about video interviews in just a minute. So recruiting, there are lots of ways to do it. It's different than it was a few years ago, for sure. I think if I had to sum this up, I would say the first thing is in finding the right person, do your best to use people you already know. Use your network, use your employees, try to find people that will fit with your culture. The second thing is to take advantage of tools that are out there working for you instead of working so hard for them. Use LinkedIn, use Indeed or Monster or whatever tool you've decided to use, but let the system work for you. It makes the whole process a lot easier. And honestly, when you look at the numbers today on people who are getting their jobs from internet searches, far exceeds anything else. LinkedIn, Indeed, those things are king. So you need to be in that marketplace. So maybe that'll give you a little bit of help with recruiting. It's different than it used to be, but we also have a really great chance of success because we have an ability to match skills in ways that we didn't before. So recruiting. And that takes us to screening. And we only had 1 or 2 people that said that this was a challenge for them. I always thought it was kind of a challenge for me because it's the detail work. Now I've got all these applications. I got to read them. I got to sort it all out. Looking for the most qualified person, figuring out who to interview. Oh, it's a lot. But it doesn't have to be, and I'll tell you why. Because if we did our work up front, we did the job description, we know what we're looking for, then we've already kind of developed a little matrix with keywords that we're looking for. So it's a little easier for us to pick through those applications and get rid of some of them. We can do stacks of must interview, might interview, and no way, Jose, right? No way am I interviewing this person. But figuring out who to interview, that's the trick. So here's a few tips on that. First thing is check for minimum qualifications. If they don't meet the minimum qualifications, you're done. Stop. Don't waste any more time. If you're required a driver's license and they don't have it, stop. They're not eligible. If you're required a college degree and they don't have it, stop. That's the end of that. So whatever you're required as minimum qualifications, that's first. If they don't meet the minimum qualifications, don't waste any more time supposing what they might have. Just stop because they don't meet what you know you need. You did your work up front. You did that on your job description. So stop. Your matrix indicates likelihood of good result. You can't score at this point, but you can just kind of use it as a checklist to say, when I look at my list of KSAs, they have 12 of the 15 that I have to have. And this person has 3 of the 15 that I need. I won't interview that one, but this other one's a possibility. So you can actually use that as kind of a checklist before you would use it as a scoring instrument. Make sure that their career goals kind of match, that it looks like they're going in the direction that you're going with your organization and that they want to share in that. And find out see if they're available for a pre-screen, a telephone or a Zoom interview. I really recommend that you do a screening call. It only takes about 15 minutes. And when you're down to that stack of might interview and must interview, that can really help you, especially with the might interviews. Because what you can do in the screening call, a few things that can help you decide whether you want to go further. First thing is just verify their qualifications. Make sure that they're correct. Review the must-have skills. Make sure that you're understanding from their application, like if you couldn't tell for sure, do they have them? So are you checking them off on your matrix? Check their career goals. How about location? In your screening interview, you can talk to them about, this is a remote work situation. Does that work for you? And they might say, no way, I have 4 kids at home. I can't do that. Okay, you're done with that one, right? Or maybe they really want to work remote, or maybe you don't have a remote job. So check them out location. Oh, by the way, this is on the other side of, the world. And can you make that? It's an hour commute for you. Are you willing to do that? So check on location. It's a lot quicker to do that now than to do an entire interview, go through this whole process, and then find out at the last minute that that's the one factor keeping them away from you. And the salary. This is a good time just to discuss salary range. You can ask them, okay, so what's the range of salary that you're looking for? Or if you're in a government situation where you have limits, you can tell them, this is my salary range. Will that work for you? However you want to work it. But the important thing is right here, find out whether the salary range is going to be appropriate. Because if it's not acceptable to them, again, why waste all the time of the full interview process when they're not going to be a match for you anyway? So I really recommend doing some kind of a pre-screening interview for those possibles, and probably no more than 15 minutes. The important thing is not to get too carried away with it. Remember that it is a screening interview, right? And then the question becomes, when you get to interviewing, is it going to be in person or virtual? To tell you the truth, most is virtual right now. And I expect that to last a long time. For the screening interviews, I'd say I'd always do screening or telephone. For the actual interview, I think at some point, you've got to meet the person face to face, right? I mean, absolutely, just to make sure that it's a good match, that the culture match, that they are who they say they are, that kind of thing. But don't rule out, virtual interviews. They're actually fine. I mean, just like you're finding out with webinars and this kind of thing, it's like, it is possible to do these things virtually. It may not be our top choice, but it's possible. And since we're there, let's just talk about a few tips for virtual interviews. It's funny because I've been talking about virtual interviews for a long time, not just since COVID, but the things that I advise people for virtual interviewing has changed. Like I used to say, the first thing to do is send them out detailed instructions of how to get on the call, what to put in here, and make sure they understand exactly how to get in. Now I say, just share the meeting link and time and see what happens. And that's real different than what I used to say. And here's why, because in today's world, virtual is a way of life now for us, and it's going to be forever. So instead of sending a bunch of information, send them the link and the time and see what happens, because you can tell a lot from that. If you start getting diluted with emails, what's the platform? How do I get into that? Is there a password? How am I supposed to hook in? Where, and they don't know what to do? That tells you something. If they show up on time, ready to go, that tells you something. So pay attention to what goes on when you give them the information instead of sharing a whole bunch of information. It's going to give you some clues about how much they know, what skills they have in this area. And if they didn't have skills, what they could go out and find out on their own. So interesting. As you're interviewing, just like in person, look at their behavior, look at the background, look at how they're dressed. That tells you a lot. That's one of the things about, virtual calls and virtual in general that has me a little concerned, that I'm having to talk to people a lot when we're doing consulting and coaching type of sessions, is just to remember that just because we're virtual doesn't mean we shouldn't be professional. I've seen some pretty funny things, where people just kind of let their guard down. Now, am I wearing pants right now? Who knows? But I look professional on top, right? I'm just being funny, but still, being professional. So looking at their dress, looking at their background, just be natural. When you talk to them, look in the eye, be natural, and observe how natural they are with you and what's going on with that. And just one word of caution: when you're done, be sure to disconnect the call properly and on time. Not everybody does that well. And sometimes you hear things that you didn't want to hear, or you say things that you didn't want anybody else to hear. So just be careful to make sure that you disconnect the call on time. So virtual interviewing, yeah, it's like it's really a good thing to do now. And there's nothing in the world wrong with using that as a tool. So I would encourage it, really, especially how things are right now. So let's talk about that interview. So now we've identified who we want to have that lengthy interview with. And probably we don't have too many people with this because we've done our screening, we've done our homework, we've lined everything up. So you're probably not going to have more than probably, I don't know, 3 to 6 people that you want to do the full length interview with. So what I'm going to focus on with interviewing today is writing interviewing questions, because like I said, I can't cover everything in the time that we have, but we can talk about questions and how to do that, because the important thing about questions is you need to find out whether they have the skills, knowledge, and abilities, competencies that you need. So we have to ask questions that gets that information from them in the right way, right? So let's talk about how we write our questions. So the first thing, this is back to like probably high school when we learned about the different types of questioning, right? You've heard this before. There's closed-ended questions, there's open-ended questions, there's probing questions. So I just put an example on here to show you. Closed-ended. Do you understand the difference between open and closed-ended questions? And what happens with this is somebody says yes or no, right? That doesn't tell you very much. I mean, you're just taking their word for it because they're probably going to say yes. It doesn't really tell you if they really get it. And it shuts them down. You know, when I think about closed-ended questions, one of the things I hear from people, and I don't know if you've ever heard this, but this is what I hear. When I ask people how did the interview go, they tell me it went really well because the interviewer did most of the talking. Have you heard that before? It seems like the interview goes better if the interview does most of the talking. The interviewee can just sit back and listen, you know, nod. That's not good. What's good about it is that, you know, you're giving them a lot of information, but what's not good is you're not getting the information that you need to determine whether this is the right candidate for you. So closing the questions just shuts them down and gives them an opportunity to say yes and stop. So we don't want to use that. Open-ended. Explain the difference between open and closed-ended questions. Now that's going to give me a lot better view of whether they understand what that means, right? And then probing is even better. When do you typically use closed-ended questions? So now they have to think about it. And here's another tip about interviewing. Sometimes when people are interviewing, and I see this a lot, the interviewer is really uncomfortable when they ask a question and the person being interviewed doesn't have an answer right away. That's okay. Give them a minute to think. Don't let the silence get in your way. Sometimes the mistake that interviewers make is they ask the question, and when the candidate doesn't answer right away, they start adding more to it. Well, you know, like if you had to do this. No, you need to just stop, be silent, give me a minute to think about my answer so that I can give you the best view of what my skills and abilities are. You're seeing how well I think on my feet. You're thinking how well I'm prepared for this. You're seeing all of that. So don't worry about silence. And it's okay to say to the person being interviewed, you know, go ahead and think about it for a second. The silence won't bother me a bit. And just sit back and listen. Watch out for leading questions and hypothetical questions. Leading questions, you do know the difference between open and closed-ended questions, right? Right? What else am I going to say, right? That's a leading question. So don't avoid that. And hypothetical questions. Let's say that you were required to write questions for an interview and you were going to hire an accountant. So what kind of questions do you think you would ask? You know, hypothetical, like this never actually happened. It probably never will actually happen. You made up the question. I'm going to make up the answer. Does that tell you that I have skills and abilities in this? No, it just tells you whether or not I can make up an answer. So I would avoid that. Check this out. I had to show you this. Applying for a job at IKEA. Do you love this? Make a chair and take a seat. That's all about demonstrating your knowledge, skills, and abilities, right? That would show them. Well, there's a way for us to do that in interviewing to get people to demonstrate their knowledge, skills, and abilities, and it's called behavioral interviewing. Hopefully you've heard of this. Behavioral versus traditional. So the difference here is with behavioral interviewing, People use past behavior as a predictor of future performance, where traditional is much broader. So in this situation where I want to use behavioral interviewing, I would say something like, tell me about a time when you used open-ended questioning in talking with an upset customer. Now I'm going to sit back and wait for them to tell me a story about how they used open-ended questioning in dealing with an upset customer. And you can see I'm going to get a much better understanding of their knowledge in this area, their skills, their abilities. I can see what they did in the past to predict what will most likely happen in the future. See how you're learning so much more about that candidate with that type of question. So behavioral interviewing, if you're not familiar with this, there's a ton of information out there. You got to find out more. Contact SBDC, tell them you need more on this, get some help with it. Those behavioral interviewing questions are absolutely the way to go. Tell me about a time when you used behavioral interviewing to select the right candidate. Behavioral interviewing, using the past to predict the future. And the silence doesn't bother me a bit. Okay, next up, selecting. Here we go. We're ready for selecting. We've interviewed, we've analyzed, we have all this stuff. Oh boy. So now we have to make the decision. How do we do that? And funny, because several of you said this didn't ship. I don't think anybody said that this was a problem for them. So that's interesting and good. I mean, at this point, you go back, you gather all the facts and the data that you've collected. You go back to the beginning, review the job description so your mind is clear on what you need in this position, what person you're looking for. Review your notes, keep your scoring grids, collect those, look at them, check the references, think everything over, and hopefully there will be a candidate that will just be right on top. Sometimes I've had situations where I kind of get stuck on two, you know, it's like, this one came out on top, but I think this one, my gut tells me this is the one. Have you ever had that happen? What I would say to you is just, if that happens to you, be cautious, because I believe in the gut factor, I do. But sometimes what I see with managers is that they have this tendency to hire kind of the same personality over and over again, because they're comfortable with that. And that's not always good. You know, we know from personality theory that there are 4 major types of personalities, right? And we need all 4 types of personality to really be whole and to be complete. And when we hire that same personality over and over and over again, we're missing something. We're missing all the strengths of those other styles that we don't have. Quick example. One time I worked with a marketing company, and they asked me to come and help them because they weren't getting anywhere. What I found out was that the personality style of everybody was exactly the same. And their style was, they all had really big, exciting ideas. They were enthusiastic. They were optimistic. They were great, but they had nobody of the personality that was pushing them towards results. It was like the shiny new object syndrome. You know, every day was exciting, and tomorrow there was a new shiny object, and nobody was actually setting goals, driving results, doing research on the ideas, figuring out systems and methodologies to do that, because they were all the same personality type. And sometimes that's what our gut leads us to as a manager. We have that tendency to want to hire that same personality because that's what we're comfortable with. So don't be so quick to dismiss all the data that you've collected, the research that you've done, the work that you've done in planning for this. When that person comes out on top and you have that little debate in your mind, like, oh, but I don't know. Just pause and think about it before you just dismiss it. All that research that you did, all the planning, it should pay off. And you really should come out with the best candidate on top. Right? We hope so. So the decision, I hope, isn't as bad as it sounds. And it sounds like most of you are doing okay with that. So I hope so. Okay, and then finally, the onboarding. Oh, we're exhausted by this point, but this is important, you know, how we actually bring the person on board. One of the things that I think is important is that as soon as we offer them the job and they accept, we start to make them feel welcome, even though maybe they're not going to start for a couple of weeks. I always ask everybody on my existing team to send a message to the new person welcoming them to the team. I encourage them to make contact with them and tell them a story about working there. When I first started working here, this is what happened to me, tell them stories. That really is helping the new employee to start to understand culture, right? Making those introductions, let them meet the different people and understand what the different roles are. All this before they even come to work, explain to them in advance the protocols, the norms, etiquette, address the small stuff, just anything you can do to help them get to know the team even before they come to work. Just have them in there and help them to feel good about what they're doing. I mean, really, this is a very important part of hiring, is the way that you bring them in. There's a lot of things that go with it, just the way that they enter the first day and what happens. I've had some interesting experiences. I'm sure you have too. I remember going to work at my very first day and somebody handed me 3 notebooks of policy and procedure that were too heavy for me to carry and told me to read them. And they'd see me in a week. That was not the best way to onboard a new kid. Not at all. I had one supervisor one time who brought in a new employee, and like a month into the new person's employment, she came to me and said, "I have a problem." I said, "Well, what?" And she said, "Well, I just found out that my newest employee, Joe, he hasn't taken a lunch hour in the entire time that he's worked here." I said, "Why hasn't he taken a lunch hour in the entire time that he's worked here?" "Well, I didn't tell him what time to go to lunch." Please. First of all, I'm seriously worried about the new kid. But also, what a lousy job we did of onboarding. We didn't even tell them when to go to lunch. So they were afraid to go because they didn't know when to go. These are little things, but we don't want turnover on the other end. We've done all this work to bring the right person here. So let's take care of them. Karen, we have a poll on this. I want to see what people are thinking about onboarding and how important it is to them. This is our third poll. Could you pull that up for us right now? I can get some feedback from everybody. Our onboarding process is well thought out and executed, somewhat unorganized, could be better, or missing. I'm anxious to see what you say. I was taking a quick look at chat here. We'll take a look at that here in the end, a few minutes. Give me your feedback on this. How are you doing with onboarding?
Voted really fast on this one, Lorna.
He has some things to say, huh?
Yes.
I think this is a step that's left out sometimes, Karen. I don't want this new person to come in and quit 2 weeks later, or even 6 months later. It's like I want to bring them up right. It's like having a new kid and you want to raise them right. To avoid problems later on. That probationary period is so important,
Okay, we've got almost everybody jumped in. I'm going to end the polling for you. Hold on just a second.
All right, let's see what we got. Drum roll.
There we go.
I love these polls. They're so exciting. I can't keep it up forever, Karen. Here we go. Okay. Wow, 3 people said it's well thought out and executed. I would love for everybody to be able to hook up with you guys and hear what you're doing. That's wonderful. Kudos to you if you've got it well thought out and executed. I mean, there's a whole checklist you can use. That book I told you about, HR Hacks, it has a checklist. There's a million of them online. Go check it out. But there's a lot to that. So good for you guys. Some people feel it's unorganized, could be better. Okay, that'll give you something to work on, right? Because you don't have enough. And some people say it's one person says it's missing. Okay, and that's something to think about, because like I said, this is important to us because we go through so much to bring on the right person, and we don't want that turnover, you know. We want to bring somebody in that's going to stay with us, right? So a lot of what happens and how good their performance is once they come in depends on what we do in onboarding. And this isn't orientation. You know, orientation is that thing that HR does where they come in and sign up for benefits and those things. No, that's not onboarding. Onboarding is like the culture, the norms, the work that you do, how we get along, how things happen, and just making me feel welcome, like a part of this team. Like I'm a part of this team and I'm where I need to be. I'm home. You know, that's what this is about. Yeah. It's very, very important. Maybe it's the most important thing in getting that happy employee. Maybe the most important thing. When they come in the first day, have their desk ready. Wouldn't it be cool if you already had business cards for them when they come in? The business cards are on their desk with their name on it. That makes me feel welcome, right? Is their tech set up? You know, did you already set it up so that they can get into the system, put in their password and get to work? Or is that going to be a whole ordeal? You know, how about some company swag? Wouldn't it be cool if I had like a coffee cup with the company logo on it? Or if you wear shirts, you know, you have shirts with your logo on it. They're sitting there on my desk ready for me. That's making me feel really special, like I'm a part of it. You know, you're introducing me to members of the team. Maybe you even have a welcoming meeting for me and we have coffee and donuts and hey, I'm so happy to see you here. Thank you for being a part of this, you know. Have a plan for at least a week, and some have a detailed plan that go over several months. Whatever you do, just make sure you give this the attention it needs, because this may be the most important thing in getting this really happy, well-rounded, long-term, top-performing employee. So here we go. It's a process, I told you. Planning, doing that work up front. Recruiting, hope you have some new ideas for that now. Screening, it's an important part because it helps you to save a lot of time in the process. How you do the interviewing, and I focused on questioning. Of course, there's more to it than that. Selecting, which I hope is an easier decision because of all the work you've done up front. And then onboarding, bringing them in right. So Karen, I think we have a few minutes for some questions, and I'm going to check out the chat real quick here and see what we have. My final advice is this: just remember that in the end, it's really all about your people. And that's what hiring is all about. It's about your people. Hiring is a great opportunity to get it right from the start. So give it the attention it needs. Let's see. Okay. Lauren says, I like Indeed. It filters a lot of spam applicants. Okay. And Lauren says, oh, Lauren's with us today. Thank you, Lauren. Plays a big role in our company candidate selection. All right, good. Is this Yulia? Says, how to hire a good HR BP? What are we saying by it? I'm not sure what a BP is. Big person? Boss person? I'm not sure what the acronym is there. Can you help me out, Yulia? Have any other questions out there, Karen? Oh, business partner. I should have got that, huh? So are you saying that you want to hire someone to do HR work for you? Because if that's the case, there are a lot of companies that do that. There are many, and I think I would be remiss if I name my favorites, because there's so many good ones. I might need more information on that to help you, and I'm certainly willing to help you offline as well. Karen?
Yeah, we have some other questions here for us.
Okay.
Get to it. Is it all right to combine screening and the first phone interviews?
To combine screening?
In the first?
Oh, I wouldn't. And I'll tell you why. I would first do the screening interviews to line up everything for the longer interview. And the reason is because I think it's a different mindset. for you and for the candidate. I think the screening call is, let's see if you really will fit, if this is really a possibility, but that other, the real interview is more like, okay, now we're down to serious business. So I would encourage separating it, because I also think it sends a message about your culture. On the other hand, if you have a big desire to do it that way, I can't say, oh, you're wrong, that's terrible, that'll be a disaster. No, I can't say that. My preference would be to do them separate, but you know, your business, you get to choose what you think is right and best for you and for your candidates.
Okay, I have another question. It says, do I send a letter or verbally tell somebody that we have chosen another candidate?
Oh, I think it's almost proper just to send a letter saying that, you know, we have chosen another candidate. I think that's the proper thing to do. I think it's just a courtesy.
Okay. So should the candidate dress to the position? Is if they know that the environment or the culture is business casual, do they go with business casual during the interview process for the virtual?
Yeah, see, that's a tough one. I think you should be dressed professionally. I think if the job is going to require you to be in suit and tie every day, you should be in suit and tie on the interview. Now, here's another thing where we find out what the candidate does to learn more about the position they're hiring for, because that's really going to be up to the candidate to try to figure out. If I knew that this was a job where I required suit and tie every day and somebody showed up in jeans and a torn t-shirt, as the interviewer, I'd be concerned. And I'm not saying I wouldn't hire them if they were the right person, but I know right now I'm going to need to talk to them about the fact that, you know, maybe in the screening, do you realize that this is a job that requires a suit and tie every day? You know, this requires like professional dress every day. And are you okay with that? So I could nip that in the bud and keep that from happening once they are hired. Yeah, I'd pay attention to it. And like I said, I think the real observation here is, whatever they're wearing, what does that say to you? What message are they conveying to you in the way that they dress? Did they even take this seriously? Do they think that's the way we dress? You know, just what's going on with that? I'd really watch to see what they do with that.
Okay. One other question here is references. When you look at, I know when I put references down, of course, I pick and choose my friends or coworkers. That's going to give me the best, you know,
Right.
reference. Do you
Right.
go one step further and, you know, maybe call those references or maybe call their previous workplace if they haven't severed the tie from the workplace, of course, but
Yeah.
call the other positions they've had?
References are so hard because there are many organizations who don't even give you information to protect themselves. You know, I'm sure you've run into that. They'll be like, well, we're not allowed to answer questions other than the fact that they were employed here between this date and this date, right? So really, I think your best bet is to try to cover that in the interview. You know, tell me why you left this job. You know, what was it? See if you can get the best information that way. Personal references aren't to be dismissed. You know, I mean, it's tough. I certainly would not put the weight of my entire decision probably on a reference unless I like got a couple of really bad ones. And in that case, I'd probably want to go back and check what in the world's going on here, because it's so different than what I got from the interview and from the research that I did. So I don't have an easy answer for that. I'm sorry. That's a hard one.
4 p.m.
Okay.
So many people don't even want to give you a reference anymore, you know? It's hard.
I think most of the time it's start date, end date, or if they're available for rehire.
Yeah, exactly right.
Right. So Tracy says we have a cleaning business, and she's just, I give more attention to prospective employees who have made the effort to dress for the interview and not turn up in ripped jeans. It's the attention to detail that we need in our business. Very good.
That's Tracy.
Uh-huh.
Tracy, right on. Because, you know, you're observing the behavior that they display in the interview and making decisions about whether that matches with what you believe for your culture is going to work. That's exactly what I'm encouraging. You know, you see an awful lot just in what you observe. So yes, right on. Good job.
Okay, Lauren's asked another question. She says, what questions are you allowed to ask the references?
You know what, Lynn, we're getting really deep into that subject, and I know that we're already a minute past time. I would encourage you to contact SBDC about this and go deeper on that, because that is a really important question. And I don't think I can do it justice in like 20 or 30 seconds. So I would encourage you to fill out that application, go to SBDC. By the way, here's my book, Becoming a Better Boss, available on Amazon.com. But this information that we were given before, here's the application form. You can go and check that out and do some deeper research on that, because that's a really important question.
Very good. Well, thank you, Lorna, for your time. We greatly appreciate it. You had a wealth of information. Like Lorna said, we ask you guys to go back and maybe register for some additional webinars, share the word about the webinars. You can visit YouTube to see the previous ones. And again, go to our website to complete the CARES application for a chance of some additional training and resources. So with that being said, thank you everybody again for joining us. Lorna, thank you again for your time. And please reach out to us with any questions.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Have a great day.